Dear Lord, help us to learn more about you in this program. Help everybody to learn something new and grow up in it. Help them to not only listen to it but also to do what is right to do in the program. Help everybody to love it and to share it with everybody else. In your name I pray, amen.
God is so big, God is so small, big enough to rule the universe, small enough to live in my heart. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 25 of the Michael Axway Reading Adventure. I am Auntie Maria.
And my name is Demari, welcoming you to episode 25 entitled God's Unchangeable Law.
And I am so excited about this episode, and that's why I am singing. Today we are going to be talking some more about symbols. Remember we talked about symbols before? How God uses one thing we know about to explain some things that we don't know about.
For example, the symbol of the lamb is used to explain Jesus' meek and gentle character. Isaiah 53:7 explains, he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shears is silent. So he did not open his mouth. Lambs are gentle and innocent. So in this verse, the Bible uses the lamb to describe Jesus.
Yes, but a lamb is not the only symbol used to explain Jesus' character. There's also the lion. In Revelation 5:5, he is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Now, what do we know about the lion? He's known as the king of the jungle. He is strong and victorious in battle. When other creatures in the safari think they are endangered by the lion, they scamper. Even his thundering roar makes them jittery.
So, while Jesus is a gentle lamb, he is also a victorious lion. And as a king, he's in charge of the whole universe, including this earth. We know this because Daniel 2:21 says, God removes and raises up kings. So when things on this earth seem to be spinning out of control, remember, God has not lost control of this earth.
No, he hasn't. Our great big God still has the whole world in his hands. And as big as his hands are, he's not too big to live in our hearts.
In this week's chapter, you will learn many of the symbols used to represent governments on this earth. These symbols will help us understand the character of these governments. While the information may be new to some of us, God will help us to understand if we ask him to do so. Remember, in
Chapter 20,
titled
Looking for Jesus,
when the adults cried out,
Daniel and Revelation are just too hard for us to understand.
Gusine told those adults,
They can't be that hard. Ask your children. They'll explain them to you.
So now it's your turn to learn, understand, and go share with others. Now this week's chapter is going to be split into two as it was for episode 18. We will have the first part of the reading followed by the first half of the quiz. We will break for a special item of music and return with the second half of the chapter and the second half of the quiz.
it's time to begin. We welcome Vernice Simon Frederick and her daughter Venicia Frederick from Tobago. They attend the churches in the Northwest District of Tobago. Venicia is now 14 years old and loves many instruments including the piano, the steel pan, drums, guitar, and bass guitar. She also enjoys watching TV.
Venicia shares this Bible verse from John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, give I to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid.
Now, it's time to get into this week's story.
Chapter 25 God's Unchangeable Law. Michael, today we have something really difficult to study, but it's also really important for us to understand. Do you want to read Revelation chapter 12 verses 7 to 9, or shall I?
I'll read it. Then there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but the dragon was not strong enough. He and his angels lost their place in heaven. He was thrown down out of heaven. The giant dragon is that old snake called the devil or Satan. He leads the whole world the wrong way. The dragon with his angels was thrown down to the earth. Mom, this makes it really clear that the dragon is Satan.
And when we know who the dragon is, then we are ready to understand something else. Now read Revelation chapter 13 verse 11.
Okay, it says, Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he talked like a dragon. So, this is another animal that John saw in vision, and it looked gentle until it opened its mouth.
That's right. But let's stop right here a minute. Before we decide what this gentle-looking animal represents, we need to identify one more animal mentioned in the prophecy. Now, would you read Revelation chapter 13 verses 1 to 10?
Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads. There was a crown on each horn. A name against God was written on each head. This beast looked like a leopard with feet like a bear's feet. He had a mouth like a lion's mouth. The dragon gives the beast all of his power and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast looked as if it had been wounded and killed. But this death wound was healed. The whole world was amazed and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because he had given his power to the beast. And they also worshipped the beast. They asked, Who is as powerful as this beast? Who can make war against him? The beast was allowed to say proud words and words against God. He was allowed to use his power for 42 months. He used his mouth to speak against God. He spoke against God's name, against the place where God lives, and against all those who live in heaven. He was given power to make war against God's holy people and to defeat them. He was given power over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All who live on earth will worship the beast. These are all the people since the beginning of the world whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. The Lamb is the one who was killed. If anyone has ears, he should listen. If anyone is to be a prisoner, then he will be a prisoner. If anyone is to be killed with the sword, then he will be killed with the sword. This means that God's holy people must have patience and faith. There sure are a lot of animals in the book of Revelation. It sounds pretty confusing.
Well, actually, there are only 3 that we read about in these verses. The dragon, the animal that comes from the land, and the animal that comes from the sea. And we already know that the dragon represents Satan. Now we need to figure out who these other 2 animals represent. Let's start with the animal that came from the sea, the one to whom the dragon gave his power and authority. A lot of the early Protestants identified this beast as the papacy.
What's the papacy?
The papacy is another word for all the popes, the system of the Roman Catholic Church and its leadership.
Why did these Protestants think this animal represented the papacy?
They put this description in Revelation together with something similar that Daniel described in his book. We can read about it in Daniel chapter 7 verses 19 to 27.
Then I wanted to know what the 4th animal meant. It was different from all the other animals. It was very terrible. It had iron teeth and bronze claws. It was the animal that crushed and ate what it killed, and it walked on whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and I wanted to know about the little horns that grew there. It had pulled out 3 of the other 10 horns. It looked greater than the others. It had eyes and a mouth that kept bragging. As I watched, the little horn began making war against God's people, and the horn kept killing them until God, who has been alive forever, came. He judged in favor of the people who belong to the Most High God, and the time came for them to receive the power to rule. And he explained this to me. The 4th animal is a 4th kingdom that will come on the earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms. It will destroy people from all over the world. It will walk on and crush the whole earth. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this 4th kingdom. After those 10 kings are gone, another king will come. He will be different from the kings who ruled before him. He will defeat 3 of the other kings. This king will say things against the Most High God, and he will hurt and kill God's people. He will try to change times and laws that have already been set. The people that belong to God will be in that king's power for 3.5 years. But the court will decide what should happen, and the power of the king will be taken away. His kingdom will be completely destroyed. Then the people who belong to the Most High God will have the power to rule. They will rule over all the kingdoms under heaven with power and greatness. Their power to rule will last forever, and people from all the other kingdoms will respect and serve them. So, Mom, who does this animal, the one that Daniel is talking about, represent?
Welcome to part 1 of this week's quiz. Question 1. In the book of Revelation, Satan is also called the dragon. Is this A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Question 2. Where did the beast in Revelation with the 7 heads and 10 horns come from? A, the sea, B, the land, or C, heaven? The answer is A, it came from the sea. Question 3. Which of these things didn't the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns do? A, say proud words against God. B, give power back to every nation. C, rule for 42 months. Or D, war against God's people. The answer is B, give power back to every nation. Question 4. The sea beast received its power from the lion. Is this A, true, or B, false? The answer is B, false. Question 5. Who did Protestants say that this beast's power from the sea represented? A, Satan. B, the United States of America. C, Rome. Or D, the papacy. The answer is D, the papacy.
I cast all my cares upon you. I lay all of my burdens down at your feet. Anytime I don't know what to do, I will cast all my cares upon you. I cast all my cares upon you. I lay all of my burdens down at your feet. At any time, I don't know what to do. I will cast all my cares upon you. I cast all my cares upon you. I lay all of my burdens down at your feet. At any time, I don't know what to do. I will cast all my cares upon you. At any time, I don't know what to do. I will cast all my cares upon you. I will cast all my cares upon you.
Who does this animal, the one that Daniel is talking about, represent?
Can you think of a powerful empire that took over all the known world and was represented by iron legs in Nebuchadnezzar's dream?
Oh yeah, that would be the Roman Empire.
So, this fourth animal of Daniel's vision represents the Roman Empire. Then, Daniel saw a little horn that grew out of the Roman Empire, but it was somehow different. He described this power as doing some of the same things that the animal did that John saw coming out of the sea in Revelation chapter 13. That's why many Protestant Bible students decided that Revelation 13 and Daniel chapter 7 are talking about the same power.
But why do people think that Daniel and John are talking about the papacy?
What does John say this animal will be doing? What did you find out about it when you read Revelation chapter 13 verses 1 to 10 and Daniel chapter 7 verses 19 to 27?
Well, Revelation says it will be speaking against God and making war on God's people. And Daniel says the same thing, and that it will try to change God's laws and times.
That's right. Now, who has tried to change God's laws?
I'm not sure. How could anyone change one of God's laws?
They couldn't really. But one thing the established church, the Roman Catholic Church, did was to change the day people worshipped from the seventh-day Sabbath to Sunday, the first day of the week. In fact, the Roman Catholic Church admits that they changed the Sabbath to Sunday and that the change demonstrates the Pope's power to make such decisions.
And so that's what Daniel means when he says this power would try to change times and laws that God has already set.
Yes, the change of the Sabbath to Sunday would be an example of that.
What does John mean when he says this power would receive a deadly wound?
Revelation says that this power will rule for 42 months, speaking against God and persecuting God's people. Then it would receive a wound that looks like it would be deadly, but the wound would be healed. Do you remember when we talked before? We learned that often a day in Bible prophecy stands for a year of real time.
I remember.
Well, you add up the time from 538 AD to 1798.
Hang on. What happened in those years and how do I add that up?
The Bishop of Rome gained control over all the other church bishops in 538 AD. This put the Bishop of Rome, who was also known as the Pope, in control of the whole established Christian church in Europe and the West. So if the papacy was to rule for 42 months, how long would that be?
42 times 30 days in each month would be 1,260 days or years.
So, if the papacy began to rule the church in 538 AD and continued for 1,260 years, when would the end of its rule take place?
You would add up 538 and 1,260. And the answer is 1798. What happened then?
That's when the deadly wound that John talked about happened. The history books tell us that the French army took the Pope captive in 1798.
Oh, he became a prisoner, just like Revelation 13 said.
But he didn't stay a prisoner forever. Okay, so now we have identified two of the animals. Let's go on to the animal that came from the earth. Look again at Revelation chapter 13 verse 11. Right after that, another animal...
Wait a minute. I want to read that verse from my Bible. Here it is. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he talked like a dragon. That's a gentle-looking animal with the bad language.
This animal comes out of the earth and grows very quickly. What nation was growing quickly in 1798 and eventually became a great world power?
We learned in school that the United States declared its independence in 1776, so it would be growing fast right about then.
That's right.
So, do you think this animal with horns like a lamb represents the United States?
Yes, that's what I think.
But one of the reasons people came to America was to have religious freedom. And Revelation 13 says that even though this power looked like a lamb, it spoke like a dragon and made people worship the animal that came from the sea. The United States doesn't do that.
No, right now it doesn't.
So how does this fit in with the lamb-like country making people worship the beast?
Well, the best way to worship someone is to respect his authority.
Right, but the United States doesn't have an official church like Europe did in the Dark Ages. And it isn't making people worship the papacy.
No, it isn't. But by keeping Sunday instead of Sabbath, and the Protestant churches respecting the authority of the Catholic Church and the authority of the Pope to make a change in God's laws?
Oh, yes, I guess so.
Mrs. White, who wrote The Great Controversy, says that in the future, laws will be passed in the United States requiring people to worship on Sunday. We will not be allowed to worship on the seventh-day Sabbath. At that time, those who keep Sunday instead of Sabbath will be worshiping the beast power.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, if they know they should worship on Sabbath but obey the law to worship on Sunday, that would be respecting the authority of the Catholic Church over God's law. But I don't see how anyone could ever be forced to do that in this country.
Not right now. People have felt that there could never be religious persecution in this country because the Protestant churches were all so different in their beliefs. But from what John says in the book of Revelation, it certainly seems that toward the end of time, Christians will get together and unite on some specific issues, and then there will be persecution.
I see. So even though at the time the Bible was written, people in Europe and the Bible lands didn't even know America existed, God still knew it was here and predicted that it would be involved in the end time conflict.
That's right. God knows everything that's going to happen. Aren't you glad He told us? With God knowing the end from the beginning, and with us knowing that God is going to win, we never have to be worried about anything.
Welcome to the second half of our quiz. Question 6. The fourth beast Daniel saw in Daniel chapter 7 represented which power? A. United States of America, B. Europe, or C. The Roman Empire? It was C. The Roman Empire. Question 7. What symbol was used in Daniel chapter 7 to describe the kingdom that grew out of the Roman Empire? A. A dragon, B. A horn, C. A lion, or D. A little horn? It was D. A little horn. Question 8. The papacy is another name for blank. Is it A. The Roman Catholic Church, B. All the popes, or C. The Roman Empire? The answer is B, all the popes. Question 9. When the lamb-like beast opened its mouth, who did it speak like? A. A dragon, B. A bear, or C. A lion? Spoke like a dragon. Question 10. How do Protestants respect the authority of the papacy? A. By worshipping on the Sabbath, B. By having different beliefs, C. By worshipping on Sunday? The answer is C, by worshipping on Sunday. You did it! Congratulations! It's now time for birthday greetings. that's it for this week. Join us next week for chapter 26, titled The Seventh Day Sabbath. See you then, and God bless you.